So I was the Supreme Allied Commander of the Boys Are Dumb Club when it started. And sadly, over time, and as they got older and started to like boys, it became, I think boys are okay and dads are maybe dumb. So it's been renamed. But one of the things that I did when the club was young, and after we got a fireplace in our house, is I installed a wood stove. Or I built a woodshed, and when the girls were quite young, they were probably grade 5 and grade 6, as young kids are apt to do, they said, "Daddy, why are you building a woodshed?" And so I told them a dad truth. I said, "I'm building a woodshed for when you bring boys home." Naturally, that was followed by another, "Well, why would you do that?" And again, I told them another dad truth and said, "Well, this is where they have to stay until I decide I'm okay with them." So I did actually find a note in Meryn's diary, contrary to her prior awareness, that somewhere around the 12th of February, 2013, said, "I'd really like to bring Denver home, but I'm not sure about this woodshed." I'm not sure if he was serious. The good news is, Denver, I'm okay with you, and... and I'm so okay with you that you now have your choice between the heated shop or the summer house. And the good news is they both have heat. One's got a wood stove and one's got gas, so pick well. Last December, Denver came along with Meryn to Lac La Biche, and there's been a number of families who have had a tradition of going up to the Birchies for the long weekend. And on the Saturday night, we were all sitting around the campfire, and all of a sudden there was this big burst of laughter when it was observed that Denver and I were wearing some of the same, we had the same colored sweater, and we were sitting in our chairs the same way, and we were observed to be remarkably similar. So, of course, Paul, sitting at my table, immediately went into a whole kind of line of thinking around daughters are always, apt to marry their parents or people who are like their dads. So Denver and Meryn were engaged at this time, of course, but I'll tell you, I have a little different theory about that. So I'm going to kind of turn it around. So let me tell you what I've observed about Denver over the time that I've known him. First of all, is he loves his family. His mom, his dad, his sister, his grandparents, and he would do anything and everything for him. He even came to know Meryn's grandparents. My mom and dad and Grandpa Gary, they knew him well before they passed away. And I can see he has a special spot for Kim's mom. He's a gentle, gentle man. And I don't think there's a harsh part to his being. And if you ever saw him around Meryn when she was all cray-cray about school, you would know what I mean. He's a calming influence. He's steady. He's very intelligent, and he's observant about what is going on around him. And a conversation with Denver about his work, about world events or music or film or sports is always insightful. I've come to know his razor-sharp wit and sense of humor, and I saw this in a high-risk way, even though he wasn't there when we were in Canmore this past summer with the Rintouls. For the second year, all of our kids and most of their companions came along for the weekend, and Denver wasn't able to make it because he was working. But he did keep in touch with Meryn, and I overheard one of the phone calls, and Meryn said to Denver, "Oh, it's too bad you're not here. Mark made one of his briskets." To which Denver replied, "I miss you so much, and I mean the brisket." He's very generous, whether it's helping with film club at his old junior high school, doing sound for my band, or going out to help his grandparents, or playing with Meryn's young cousins. He's generous with his time and his skills. And again, as we've gotten to know the Mason family, we see that's absolutely in their gene pool. There's generosity through and through. So in summary, if I have any of Denver's qualities, I'm pretty good with that. That's some good company I can keep. So I have a few last words for you, Denver, and for this one, I'm afraid I can't be responsible for what may come out of me when I'm trying to get through this, so just bear with me. There might be a tear or two that sheds here. Maybe for a couple of other fathers in the room as well. And don't worry, it's not going to be one of those, remember I'm the big dog, because I already know Charles is the big dog in your household. And I'm not going to tell you anything about Meryn that you probably don't already know. And what you don't know, you should have the opportunity to discover yourself. But the last thing I am going to tell you, you're going to have to read between the lines, because it's kind of hard to explain. And you might not actually understand this for a few years. So Kim was the first one to feel Meryn. And before she came into the world, there were times when there were ripples across her stomach, almost like waves on the ocean. And as she approached February 10th, it was pretty clear she was ready to hit the world running. And when she did, I was the first to see her face. And when she opened her eyes, and the light fired her rods and her cones, and she could make out shape, I was the first one she saw. Actually, the obstetrician kind of stepped aside and said, "Here you go." But she saw me first. When she started to process in her brain, she began to see a whole new world. Everything was a first of. And then her brain told her to gasp and fill her lungs, which she did. And she filled them very, very deeply, because then she opened her mouth. And she had an enormous cry. Mind you, so did I. And then she was born, bundled, and placed on her mom, and she settled. And then the nurse came to take her to the nursery, give her a good scrubbing, and then I heard another round of crying. I figure she was about an hour old, and if you think about it, that's about 2,500 breaths. She was that fresh, getting all cleaned up, looking around, trying to figure out what's going on. Every experience was new. Dean knows what I'm talking about. Paul knows what I'm talking about. Mark knows what I'm talking about. Len knows what I'm talking about. Marv knows what I'm talking about. But not really saying, because it's just about impossible to describe. Watching your child be born, the first smile, crawl, walk, reading a book, riding a bike, actually after Thaya rode, graduating, finding a job, finding a partner, beginning to find her way. It just can't be described. So if you and Meryn ever did decide to embark on a similar journey, you'll eventually know what I'm talking about, but not really saying. And if you decide to go on this journey, I'm sure you're going to want to build a woodshed. And if you want some help, I'm sure your dad and I will help you out, because it's what dads do.
Meryn and Denver started dating when I started my new job, and a colleague asked how the relationship was going and if I had any concerns. My only concern, I reported, was that Denver loved her too much. I was worried that at 17 and 18, they would not make independent choices for their futures. I'm very happy that they have chosen and done many unique things for each of them. They each have been given many gifts to bring to the relationship. Denver is very sensitive and thoughtful. Thaya is like the family dog, in the sense that the dog knows your intentions. Let's explain that. She can sense if you're a person that needs a big bark or a bite. And Denver won her over quickly and knows the things to make people feel comfortable around him. And as Truman discussed, Denver is very helpful. He has helped with many of the projects we have done, and he's always the first to help in the kitchen with IT. Denver is willing and open. He ate over at the house often, and I think he started to look forward to meatless Mondays. He was also willing to support Meryn as she grieved the loss of her grandfather and slept on a floor in a hotel in Calgary, surrounded by Meryn's grandma, mother, and sister. Denver, you're a good balance for Meryn. You've watched her through school and start a new job, and you know the intense energy that she lives life. Maybe that's cray-cray, as Trim says. I'm sure that watching the weather this past week was also another experience that you probably had to help her settle with. Snow in summer, who would have thought or planned for? There's a saying that the rain on your wedding day is lucky, and I'm sure that snow is double luck. We love you both dearly, and we're glad to welcome you officially into the family. We look forward to life full of adventures and memories. We wish you all of God's richest blessings on your marriage and grow surrounded by all the love.
So raise a glass to Denver and to his family.